back, and we're now going to go to Committee of the Whole. We have several items of Committee of the Whole. First item is a resolution by the City Council of Bellingham, Washington, making a declaration of substantial need for the purposes of setting the limit factor for 2016 property tax levy. Mr. Henshaw.
Great. Thank you, Brian Henshaw, Finance Department. So the next two items we need to discuss together and then vote separately for. This is only the third time since 1998, that the implicit price deflator has been below 1%. So statutorily, the city can levy property tax increases of 1% or inflation measured by the IPD, implicit price deflator. So in order to levy a property tax greater than 0.251% this year for 2016, we need to pass a substantial needs resolution in addition to the property tax levy ordinance. The last time this happened was in 2009, and we did do a resolution then, and we are recommending that we do a resolution again today. The difference in the property tax levy that we could increase it by is about $55,000 if we just use the IPD inflationary rate, or 1% is about $220,000 of added property tax levy for the city of Bellingham. So it's a difference, an increase of about $165,000. Any questions on that? There's an article in your packet from MRSC. I think that explains it very well, but basically, statutorily, we are limited to this unless we do a resolution.
Okay. Is there any questions, or does anybody want to make a motion? You have a question, Jack? Go ahead.
Question, Brian. When was what year was it that we chose not to do it because of the recession? 2010?
The property tax where we didn't levy anything, yeah, I believe it was 2010.
Okay.
I would move we pass the resolution.
Yeah. Can we wait 1 second and talk about the ordinance first, and then we'll come back to it?
Okay, then we'll vote on it separate.
Okay. Yeah.
Okay, go ahead.
So, and then, so on page 204 of your packet, this is the actual ordinance for levying the property tax. And one other important business item we need to take is to close the written public comment period. So we had a revenue forecast on October 26th. I think a couple people spoke in general about the revenue forecast, nothing in particular about the property tax. I did not receive any written comments since then, and Marie also said that there was none given to council directly. So with that, I would ask that we close the public comment for written.
We're going to close the public comment, written portion of the public comment. Okay.
All right, and then page 205 of your packet, I have included basically the estimate for the property tax levy, what may happen based on the information provided by the assessor. So you see up at the top that I'm estimating the assessed valuation to be $9,041,000. That's the top right-hand corner. That includes an estimated new construction of $71 million. These are in thousands, if you see that. And that's lower than last year, so it'll be interesting to get the final numbers from the county assessor. Last year we had $88.6 million of new construction. But with those and some other assumptions based on refunds and changes to public lands in the Bellingham city limits, the total levy amount would be $24.3 million, and then $3 million of that goes to the home levy. 14.5 million of it goes to the general fund, and about $2 million goes to fire, police, pensions, and 4.8 million to greenways.
Okay.
Now I would take any questions, but then we'd need two motions.
Two separate motions. Okay, any more questions for Brian? Okay, we'll first go to the motion for the resolution. Terry, you moved, and somebody seconded?
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any further discussion? All in favor will say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed, motion carries 7-0. Now to the ordinance. We have to make a motion on the ordinance also.
Move to approve.
Second.
Dan moved and Jack seconded. Did you get the first and second on the other? Okay. Okay, motion made and seconded on the tax levy ordinance. Any further discussion? All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries 7-0. Thank you, sir. Mr.
One quick question, but Mr. Henshaw,
just a minute, Brian. You didn't move fast
A
enough.
small thing.
You got to jump out of there.
We, at the bottom of your spreadsheet, we calculate the impact on the median home, but I notice we use the median home as $250,000 every year, each and every year, but it's actually not. The median home goes up and down, you know. Could we actually have the median home be indexed differently each year? So it's the actual genuine impact. If my home goes up from $250,000 to $260,000 in valuation, my property tax goes up a teeny bit too.
Correct. So 250 is a pretty good proxy for the median, actually.
It's close.
And it does go up and down. So if you went on right now, it's between 270 and 280. But if you start moving that up and down, it is harder to do a comparison. So I think it is valid to use as standard, and that shows you then what it would, the change just is on the property tax rather than the change in the value of your house, because that's two variables then instead of one. But as soon as it's not a legitimate median, then I would agree that we should raise the standard and then have it at a baseline that is constant for a period of time. So is that now? That's a fair question, I guess.
By having an artificially steady house valuation, it gives a really accurate read on our tax rate,
Yeah.
but it gives a very misleading indication on the actual impact on actual homeowners, and I want to know that too. So I think both ways
you want
are
two
useful.
variables instead of one, so that
In reality, both variables are moving for an actual homeowner,
yeah.
you know.
But I don't know still about yours. It could have gone down too. So I'd be happy to do that if you'd like.
I would like to see an
Okay.
attempt at that. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much. We now go to this very controversial issue. Resolution setting the 2016 City Council meeting schedule. Does everybody had a chance to look at the meeting schedule? We have to do this every year.
That's good.
Any objections, Jack?
I won't be there
Just check.
You should make some crazy motions.
Okay. Is there a motion to set the meeting schedule for next year?
So moved.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? All in favor will say aye. Aye. All opposed, motion carries 7-0. The next is a resolution regarding the Korean War Children's Memorial in Big Rock Garden. Terry, you want to talk about this?
Yeah, I do. I'm bringing this forward in conjunction with George Drake. And for people who don't, and I know George will say this is about the memorial and it should be kept on that, but I do have to say a few words for people who don't know who George Drake is.
George, come on up to the desk.
George
here.
is here in the. George sat where we sat. George is a ex-city council. Yes, but George was a city council member here. He was also. Yeah, and he was a professor at Western, and then he found the Big Rock Garden and donated property and a lot of other things. But he's also a Korean War veteran, and that's where we are with this. George has been very instrumental in raising the level of consciousness about the Korean War veterans and their effort to save orphans, children that were orphaned during the war, and to highlight the men and women in Korea who worked towards that. He was just back in dinner in Washington, D.C. 2 weeks ago that was hosted by the ambassador for Korea for the president of Korea who had come here. And he was highlighted in that by the president of Korea for his work in the orphans issue. And so we brought forth a resolution regarding the Korean War Children's Memorial in Big Rock Garden, and basically just asking that the name of that and the plaque that is on those not be changed without it coming to the city council and us consulting veterans groups with that, because there has been incidences recently of memorials at the garden being changed without, and I'm not sure why or what standards, but we want to make sure that this doesn't happen particularly to this memorial. The resolution that we have in their packet, we noticed there's a couple corrections that I have to make, and so I wanted to read that in. The third whereas, where it says, whereas the Korean War Children's Memorial at Big Rock, and the one in their packet, it just says Big Rock Park. It should be Big Rock Garden Park. Is the only war memorial in the United States that honors its veterans for their compassion and humanitarian aid to the innocent children of that war. And down the sentence below, now therefore be it resolved by the City Council of the City of Bellingham that, and we want the inclusion of that, the Korean War Children's Memorial inserted, that sentence, that part inserted in Big Rock Garden Park shall be protected and preserved by the citizens of Bellingham for future generations. And with those corrections, I would like to move passage of this resolution.
Second. Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? Pinky.
Oh, I just wanted to thank you, Mr. Drake, very much for bringing this to our attention. And I do have one concern on this, is that the information you brought to us was about a number of plaques being changed throughout the years. And I think that this is not inclusive enough, and I believe that there should be no modification of any of the memorial plaques in Big Rock Garden, not just the Korean Memorial or Children's Memorial, but all of the ones that are honored in that park. I don't think any modification should be done without approval.
Mayor?
And I guess before we would take an action on that, I would like you to talk with have Leslie come and explain to you what's happened with other memorials that were there, which I'm very supportive of this resolution to protect this particular memorial. And there are different kinds of memorials. So before we decide to do all of them, could we have Parks Department come and talk to you about them?
Yeah, I would have thought Leslie was going to, someone from Parks was going to be here for this. But,
Well, she
so we
actually
could have
supports
asked,
this, so
Okay.
it's fine.
Michael?
but
Well, actually, Kelly kind of anticipated it. I don't know what other plaques there are. Be
We'll
nice to
find
know.
out. We'll find out. George, you want to say anything? You don't have to stand up, sir.
Am I supposed to talk in
There
this?
you go.
of course.
You don't need
I
a
can still
microphone.
stand. I'm 85, but I still. I would just like to point out that this memorial is not merely a Bellingham memorial.
Right.
It has assumed the status of a national memorial. It is the United States counterpart of the big memorial, Korean War Children's Memorial at Imjingak, the Peace Park right at the DMZ, and is visible from North Korea. This has been written up in a book on the Korean War published by the Ministry of Patriots and Veterans Affairs. It has been subject of 5 one-hour documentaries produced by Korean television. It has been subject of 21 TV shows. It has been shown and talked about on every single military base in the world, U.S. military base, and has literally an international status. It has shown the world that Bellingham cares about the effect of war on our veterans, and the fact that our veterans are decent human beings with incredible amount of compassion, and they cry when they see what's happening to the children and do everything they can. This memorial really highlights Bellingham as a caring community, and I was just concerned about the manipulation of plaques in the park, and knowing that there are people who think all war memorials should be in cemeteries, which I absolutely disagree with. I want to make sure that unknowingly the city fell into a little situation that would be grossly embarrassing to the city and outrageous to the veterans of our community who have done so much.
Thank you, sir. Okay, motion been made and seconded. All those in favor will say aye. Aye. All those opposed, motion carries 7-0. Thank you very much, George.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you. 감사합니다.
Okay, we now have to approve some city council committee or special meeting minutes. The first minutes are for the committee meetings of October 26th. Is there a motion?
I move approval of the October 26th meeting minutes.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion? I'll be abstaining. I wasn't here that afternoon. You remember that? Yeah. Okay, all those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstention, one abstention, motion carries 601. The next is the Transportation Benefit District minutes for June 1st.
Second.
Motion been made and seconded. Any discussion?
I'm going to abstain from that one because I wasn't there.
Okay. All those in favor will say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, abstentions?
Yeah. Aye.
Motion passes 601. Old or new business? Anybody have any old or new business? Michael?
I wanted to ask the administration, I talked to Brian Heinrich about this briefly, for if there's been some discussions on the jail issue, not so much the ballot measure, but our continuing arrangements to try to
well,
find.
Before we leave old or new business, we'll do that. I'll just make sure if everybody else
Okay.
get their old or
Sorry.
new business in, and then we'll let Brian talk. Terry?
Yeah, next Monday morning, 8:30 in the morning on the corner of Indian and Laurel Street, we are going to be unveiling the new Billy Frank Jr. signs. And so if anyone wants to stop down for that, it will be at 8:30 in the morning on Indian and Laurel Street. And it will, or by the end of the ceremony, it will be Billy Frank Jr. and Laurel Street.
Okay. Anything else in our old or new business? Okay, Brian, you want to come up and... Mayor,
So
I'll let
I'm
you go
gonna-
first.
I have one other little
Yes.
old business thing that just became old business. And I didn't hear a conversation, but I know that we had requested that our August meeting dates be grouped together the first 2 weeks. And I didn't know if you guys had purposely decided not to do that or if it just slipped by. And I apologize.
No, I should have been more specific. Go ahead, Michael.
No, I did notice, and we have three-week breaks spread out evenly, so I like the August schedule.
Well, and we were just saying it's because of budget time and when people are unavailable, and it might be better to have a couple weeks in between 3 meetings in a row, which are, I guess that's not a meeting, that's a vacation day, but a non-availability day. No, I just wanted to make
Well,
sure that you had thought about it and
but
decided not to do it.
there's nothing to say that when we get to that point, I mean, we've changed the calendar before, so this, even though it might be set in stone now, if things change, we could, it's
Okay,
something we
I
could
just-
look at again.
I just wanted to bring that up in
Okay.
old business so that...
I should have said something, but I didn't.
That's okay.
Okay.
All right, now for new business, new old business.
Old business.
Old business. So we had received a letter from the sheriff. We had written him back a letter, asked to meet with him, and this was regardless of whatever was happening with the initiative, because we know that there's going to be some reduction in jail population. And so we had a meeting Thursday, and I'll let Brian and Peter go into some of the details. But I just need to say that I was very appreciative of our staff offering alternatives that might look at how we could work together to reduce the jail population in a very responsible way, both for the safety of our citizens and residents in the city of Bellingham, and also in a way that helps protect the overcrowding issues in the jail. So I am going to continue to say that a lot of the things we're talking about I see could be applied countywide, not just what is going to happen with Bellingham, but in the course of coming up with potential countywide solutions. If there is some difference about this between the county and the city based on what the direction that the county council gives, then we can use these ideas for ourselves. And Peter's been doing a lot of research about this, and anyway, so I'll let them talk a little bit more about it. But I'm hoping that there's going to be an opportunity to continue to talk to the county about the system and not just the relationship between Bellingham and the county.
Brian Henrich, Mayor's Office. As the Mayor said, we met last Thursday to discuss what the Sheriff's plans are, and that was our central question to him was what criteria will he use to reduce the populations of the jail beginning, certainly around the first of the year. What the Sheriff shared with us is that he's looking at having a cap on the facility at or about 212.
The existing jail.
The existing jail across the street. And so in a lot of respects, what that will mean is will be a day-to-day or certainly a week-to-week adjustment will be needed on the types of inmates that are involved or that will stay there. One of his goals that he did share is that he does not want to go down the road of having booking restrictions. That happened, as some of you probably remember, some time ago. He was not looking at that as an option. That said, the challenge before us will be really understanding who are the people that we have in the facility, what is the length of their sentence, are there any mitigating circumstances for them in terms of mixing with the population there, are there mental health needs, are there other medical needs. It will be a little bit of a moving target for us. I don't know, Peter, if you wanted to add anything to that.
Peter Rufato, City Attorney's Office. I would just add that, I think there are phases to this in terms of addressing the immediate issue as of January 1 and addressing this cap that the Sheriff has talked about that may very well involve an alternative facility yet to be, there'd be a contract on that if it came to that approved by council. But there are other phases too, and looking at process issues that we think there could be better utilization potentially of other jail alternatives, in the current system. But I think it was a good meeting because we shared some ideas, and it's my hope that even before the task force gets finished, we can implement some smaller process issues that can impact the jail population. That's the hope. Again, there's been a lot of ideas generated. We've been having lots of discussion, led by Brian, but also on the court side with the public defender and the prosecutor. We've been going over lots of issues, generating lots of ideas, and I think the challenge will be trying to make it more of a system-wide approach as opposed to just looking at it on a day-to-day basis.
Barry?
Yeah, given that the levy issue failed, and which kind of nullifies some interlocal agreements, will we, with the talk with them, will Bellingham be, and our misdemeanors be treated the same way when it comes to jail space as the other cities?
I think
because
well, and please correct me if I misspeak, but I heard the sheriff say that we would have been treated differently if the jail measure would have passed.
Right. Yeah.
And I think he said that if it failed, that then they'd have to look at everybody in the jail as far as the severity of their sentence and things like that, which would be different. And as we know, the initiative failed, so I'm assuming that the idea that we can look at system-wide would be a greater possibility now. The other thing is, I think it's going to take some direction potentially from the county council, because it seemed as if going to look for an alternative immediately as far as another proposal to put on the ballot was not something that the sheriff was thinking about doing. He was looking at investing capital money in the existing facility and potentially the alternative jail. So I think that after the dust all settles, then we'll have an opportunity to continue to talk to the county about the immediate situation. And of course, Dan and I and Darlene are on the task force, and hopefully we'll see some something come out of that too, but it certainly is a longer-term, task force is a longer-term proposal.
Michael?
Yes, thank you, Gene. Brian, you said that the sheriff wants to oppose a 212 inmate cap. That's just for the downtown jail facility. I know the overall volume of inmates is around 340, but how many of those on average these days are in the downtown facility as opposed to the one out at Iron Gate? Is that cap much lower than the current population or at the current population?
It's much lower. I would say it's probably 100 to 150 fewer. I mean, again, remember that the jail population it's a bit of a moving target. It fluctuates day to day, depending on the length of sentences and the types of offenses that were committed. So,
So is that 212 cap for both facilities combined?
No, that's
Okay,
for the
it's just for the
downtown facility.
downtown.
Correct. And then another, say, 70 to 100 at the Iron Gate facility.
Okay.
At one point, though, it did say, I think in one of the newspaper articles, that it also included electric home monitoring. There was kind of a group of what it included. It's not been clear how we're coming up with the numbers.
Okay. Thank you, folks.
Thank you.
We now will go into executive session, and after we're done with executive session, we have a budget session. So, we have two 5-minute executive sessions, labor negotiations, 5